Hello, hi.
Hello,
How are
hi,
you?
how are you?
Yeah, fine. So, how have you been?
Yeah, very good, and you?
All right. Yeah, I'm just started working again after I've been on a long vacation.
Ah,
So,
yes, yes. Where are you going?
I'm to China
Oh,
actually. Yeah, so it's quite nice over there. And so, do you plan any vacation also, as well?
yeah, we go on Christmas time. We go to Scotland
Oh, okay.
and see all the nice castles.
Ah, okay. Great.
Yeah,
I heard they have also some great whiskey over there.
yeah, that's possible.
Okay.
Let's check this out.
Yeah, we have to go there as well sometimes. So, all right. Yeah. So we've exchanged some emails in the last couple of weeks. So after the last email, did you find something out?
Yeah, I can show you this later.
Okay. Great. Fantastic. Yeah. So our topic we talked about was culture. How is it defined, and how do you communicate between different
Yeah,
cultural backgrounds? Um, so what I found out is, first of all, around the definition of the culture. Did you hear about that? Do you know?
yes, I hear about that. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So what I found out is it's a system um, where different um, kind of values and processes and yeah, basically rules also.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you.
So concerning the business, uh, first we want to start defining the culture. Before we talk about it, we define what culture is. Do you agree?
Yes.
So culture is basically a system um, where there are certain rules for people, and this again is also based on their um, backgrounds, where they come from, what they know, and so on. Any questions? Hey, hello, hi.
Hello.
Ah, okay. So, how are you doing today?
Thank you.
Are you good? Yeah, everything is okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you already do some holidays?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay. Um, so, yeah, we exchanged some emails. Did you find out something in the last couple of days
Yes.
after?
Yes.
Okay, so what did you find out?
Yes. I don't know. It's funny stuff.
Okay, funny stuff. Yeah, I would like to go more into detail, but I mean, for example, um, yeah, we can maybe talk about the culture. So culture was actually something also in my holidays I found out that the people in China are a little bit different than in the UK, for example.
Is this important for our business in the moment?
Yes, it's very important. I think you can learn from different cultures and how the people behave, for example. And there was a funny guy also on the holidays in China. He was drinking whiskey all the time, and I just didn't know if he's, if he's from Scotland or from China. Okay. All right. So actually, are you sick, or why don't you? Are you not really feeling well, or?
No, but I'm here for the business, not for talking about private parties.
Ah, okay. Well, for me, it's important, the context and everything. So
Okay.
Three examples of low context communication, low context cultural communication, high context cultural communication, and a mix between both. I think you also realized at the end, in the third example, that the tension between those two conversation partners, which with different cultural behaviors, was kind of there and obvious. So one was a low context, that was actually my wife, and I tried to give more context into the conversation, and finally, yeah, it didn't really proceed very well. So what are we going to do with this now? Well, first of all, I thought about, analyzing what is happening between those different cultural communication patterns, and then we can think about, after the analysis, what to do about this, right? So as you can see, I prepared a whiteboard, and for the moment I will put this here on the side. Nevertheless, I want to first start with explaining what culture basically is in very simple words. So culture is basically a system where it's kind of important to measure how people act, how they behave, and how they perceive the behavior, and also then at the end, if they accept the behavior or reject it. And in culture, there are also certain rules, values, and processes. And in in a high context culture, for example, you have a lot of more body language and a lot of more wrapping, so to say, around the message. Whereas at a low context culture, you don't have that. It's more about the content, and everything else is not important, basically. So as an example here, I have Kim as a persona for high context culture, and I also have Tim, which is kind of a persona for a low context culture. And if you want, you can also say, in very simple black and white thinking, that low context culture is more kind of a Western way to behave, and high context culture more Eastern. But that's very, very simplified and very black and white, because you always have both elements everywhere, basically, right? So just to start here, so in my framework, you have Kim, where it's kind of, like a starting point here. Starting point, like a trigger, basically, right? And the trigger can be anything, like an event from outside, a perception, basically. And there's the comprehensive interpretation by Kim, and this actually correlates with the culture in high context, rules, values, and processes. And together with the comprehension and interpretation, there's also motivation, which kind of correlates also with rules and processes. And the motivation and the interpretation together cause basically an action, right? And the action is either positive or negative, right? So what happens then? On the other side, if there's an action, positive or negative, by Kim, there's also, of course, a perception on Tim's side, right? And Tim is basically perceiving this action negative or positively. So Tim on his side is also having a comprehensive interpretation of the perception, right? And this correlates with the rules and values and processes of the low context, and of course also with the motivation, right? Which correlates also with the interpretation. So there's like a whole model between those different elements. Perception, basically what Tim does, what he does then, he's doing a comparison on his models, right? So what he basically does, he compares it to his cultural model, and then he decides here the decision, if he's gonna reject it or accept it. And on this, he's also acting positive or negatively. And the action itself causes a comparison, a perception basically, a comparison, perception on this side. Yeah, actually put it here. Perception and a comparison also on this side here, on Kim's side. So Kim as well is then either rejecting or, accepting it, right? And then the cycle is basically, complete. And my point of view, what behavior is actually then at the end, this kind of relates basically to the system and is like the whole kind of correlation between behavior and action. And here as well, behavior is the representation of an action, or the other way around. So that's basically the model, how I understand it. And the problem is that those rules, values, and processes here are different. The interpretation is different. The motivation is different. And then out of this, the perception is at the end also different. By comparing it always, to the values and processes and rules, there's a gap. And I think the only way to relieve that kind of problem is basically to learn other cultures, rules, processes, and values, and try to adapt them, try to understand, and kind of adapt in your own behavior to the other culture. All right, thank you very much. Hello, just a little correction from the last video. This arrow actually from action here has to go down here. The action actually triggers a perception on the other side, and then from the perception, the start of the comparison is launched, and here starts the comparison, right? So here you have accept, here also accept, and here you have reject, and here also reject. So that's just as a little update, little correction from my side.